Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Bluefin Design and I'm Nikhil. And today we are going to look at nested components with Adobe Xd or any program of your choice. The concept is the same across all platforms and programs. I'm guessing you've already used Google Maps and you must have seen different pin locations and the details of those different pin locations and businesses which are listed on Google Maps. For every location, Google has a lot of details available for the regular user in form of cards, and they also have images which you can actually scroll through to see different images provided by the business and also uploaded by different users. We're going to actually build this in Adobe XD using nested components. But first, let's browse through Google Maps. So I'm in Google Maps, like the actual website, and this is Toronto, where I live, and I'm zooming in downtown Toronto. It's the heart of Toronto, the way I like to call it. So as you can see, there's a lot of different types of pins and locations and different details listed on Google Maps. And you can really see this across any location or any major city of your choice. So there's this railway station, there's a hotel, there's a parking space, there's McDonald's, which is a restaurant, there's other restaurants, there's financial centers, and all of those businesses or locations or pins on Google Maps have a lot of details for those respective pins. So we just actually went through different types of businesses which are listed on Google Maps. The one similarity in how Google actually shows the information on Google Maps is through cards, and we can really appreciate the information architecture used by Google Maps. So in this video, I'm actually going to try to simulate the card feature with nested components. And we'll try to cover a couple of them to give you an idea of how to build these in your applications or your designs. I like sharing my knowledge and ideas with the community. And so if you like what you see, do like this video and share it with your network so a lot more people can benefit from this. And do consider subscribing because I have a lot of stuff planned ahead for you. So let's get started. So I'm in Adobe XD. I've already created an artboard and I've added a screenshot of the Google Maps and my chosen location over here on the artboard as an image and named it BG, meaning background. And we're going to try to simulate this card for the restaurant, which is one of my favorites here in downtown Toronto. Also, this is a screenshot of the card when the pin is hovered over. It's really a sneak peek of the most useful information you would want as a user in one glance. So it's really inspiring when you think about it in terms of design, how many types of information is available to the user, and all of that obviously for free. So for this video, I've actually made some progress already to save time. So we are going to use different stars for reviews. So I've actually created an icon for using those stars. So this is basically if a location has 4 out of 5 stars, so the fifth star is going to be empty. So this is that empty star. Now I made it a component so I can basically reuse all the 5 stars in the review. So I've added another state which is fill state. I also made the bookmark location and added another state. So it's going to be a hover state for the bookmark and likewise for the directions as well. So I've added the hover state for those. And to see if those restaurants offer dine-in or uh, takeouts, I've added 2 more icons and converted them to components because we might reuse these. So it's a better idea to actually use use them as components. Google Maps also uses a lot of pin markers, so I actually created these pin markers as well. They're easy to create in Adobe XD with the pen tool. And again, this was a combination of two icons to create a restaurant pin and one more for parking. So we are going to see like a few examples of the different kind of businesses that I was talking about. So here's the screenshot of the card information. And so we are going to build it from the ground up. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool and give it a radius, a border radius. So obviously there's going to be more information like the place name, the icons, which we are going to just reuse, and the reviews, the type of place, and the further information about that place. But I really want to start with the photos on the top. So the way I imagine to build these photos is actually building its own component first. So we can actually use different states of a component for different photos. It'll all make sense in just a moment. So just follow along. So here I have a few photos of my favorite location in downtown Toronto, and I'm going to use this. Obviously, these are the property of Google Maps. I don't own any copyrights to this business or these photos. So here is the shape or the size of the photos. So actually, let's do them over here. So I'm going to duplicate this rectangle and then basically just resize them. I only want the corner radii for the top left and top right corners. So I'm going to set these like so. We're going to use this as a background, sort of like a container for the photos. So I'm going to create a bunch of copies for this. So let's start by pressing Command or Control D. So here's one copy. What I'm going to do is actually place the copies together, but let's start with one of the images. Now you can see over here, the image width is actually less than the width of the container, and that's by design because we want to indicate to the user that there's more stuff to the right of this image. So again, I'm going to use a rectangle tool, or better yet, I can just create a copy of this and use it over here. Obviously, I'm going to remove the corner radii. So I'm going to select both of these, the image beneath and the rectangle above, and right click and mask with shape. We're going to use masks for all the individual images because the images might be of different dimensions, but we want them to align perfectly with this container. So that's why I created a mask. Now I'm basically just going to copy that rectangle and create the masks in the similar way for all the different images that I want to use. The only important thing to note over here is I want to keep the height the same as the container for these images. So it's 190, and I'm going to basically keep the same across all the masks. All right, so now we have, let's say this business has uploaded only 4 images. So we have the 4 images that we want to use. Like I mentioned earlier, we want those rounded corners for these images. as shown in this screenshot as well. And so that's what we're going to create. So I'm going to basically use one of these rectangles itself, the rectangle, the shape that we used for creating the mask. I'm just going to create a copy, and there it is. And just add the exact same radius, the corner radius, which is 16 pixels to this one. And we only want the corner radii on the top two corners. So I'm going to reset the bottom two by selecting this option. So you can individually set the corner radii. So there you have it. And this time I'm actually going to set the width of this mask um, the same as this one. So we have 524. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as they're both the same. So now you can see that this mask's width is actually more than the image behind it. And that's what we want, because we want to show the second image. Basically, that implies that there's something to the right and gives the user an option to scroll. So with all of these selected, actually, let me just rename this as mask. And with all of with all of the four images, or how many ever images you have for that particular pin or a location, I'm going to select all of those images and also the mask shape, and then just right click and mask with shape. So there you have it. If I go into the mask, I can still see that the four images are over here, but we only want to show this portion because we're going to move this on top. These images perfectly fit. Now I created a mask, but you could really use a scroll group as well. But then the interaction would be drag as it is in the scroll group. But we are actually simulating the Google images. So you click on the right icon over here to show the next image. So that's what we're going to include in that mask next. Now the important thing to think about is how the interaction for these images is going to look like for the user. So the user should be able to scroll through the images by clicking on this right icon, which we will add in a moment. So I'm thinking of it as creating like different states of a component. So one component, or the default state, is what we see over here. But again, the next state could be this way. So the images has been moved. So we're going to create multiple states, but first what I want to do is actually add those indicators left and right for the user to scroll through. So I'm going to go to the plugin icons for design, and you can use chevron icons. You can basically just search for icons right over here. So once you're happy with the icons that you want, you can actually bring them over here. And what we also want to do is, when I place the icons over here, let's say I'm happy with this, I'm going to set the border color to white so it's nice and visible. If you look closely at the screenshot, or if you look closely at the Google Maps, you'll find that there's a nice shadow behind this icon. So we're going to try to simulate that as well. And so I'm just going to quickly see what the height of this is. That's 190. With the rectangle tool selected, I'm quickly going to create one more rectangle with the same height, and essentially just remove the border, place it below the icon so we see it. We won't be able to see right now because the color is the same. So with that rectangle selected, I'm going to go into the fill color and select linear gradient, and basically I'm just going to rotate the direction of the gradient so we have a nice transition. But what I'm looking at is basically I don't want this end or the right end to be white. I want it to be completely transparent. So I'm going to select black color and then set the opacity to 0 so it's completely transparent. I'm going to do the same with this, but keep the opacity to about 80%. So I'm happy with this. I'm going to create, or with this left chevron left icon and the rectangle that we just created with the gradient, I'm actually going to create a copy because we want the same thing on the right side as well. So pressing Command or Control D on the keyboard, and I'll just move this out because we're going to need that later. I'm going to flip it using this option over here in the properties panel. So with this, both these shapes selected, I'm going to press Command or Control G to group them. I'll name it icon left. I'll group the other two, the ones on the right. I want to move them in its right place. So now they're in the right place, and now I'm going to group them and name it icon right. We also need to set the color of this arrow to white. So now it's what it should be. I'll quickly place these in their own place. Perfect. So with all of these selected, I am going to create a component. So you can, with this selection, you can right click and make component. You can also use the shortcut Command or Control K, or you can come on the properties panel and click this plus icon to make it into a component. So there you have it. We have the first default component for the images for the users to browse through. But in the initial state, I don't want to show the icon left because that is the first image that we're showing, and there's nothing to the left. So I'm going to set the opacity of this to 0. I'm not hiding it. I'm just going to set the opacity to 0. All right, and now I'm going to create one more state and basically name it image 2. I'm going to select all the 4 images and place the second image. So this state basically shows the second image. And I'm going to repeat this process for all the images. So since this particular map location, like they've only uploaded 4 images, so we only have 4 states. Default 1, image 2, image 3, and image 4. And on the last state, since there's no more images, I'm going to set the opacity for this right icon to 0. So the only option is to go back to the left direction. So we have this default state, which is the first image. This is the second image with the option to go in both left and right directions. And again, the same with image 3 and 4. So you can create as many states as you want with as many images as you want. The only thing to keep in mind is we still need to prototype or wire these states up. So when the user actually clicks on the right icon over here, we should take the user to the next image. So I'm going to set the transition or the action of this interaction to auto animate because we want the images to slide nicely. The state is image 2, and the easing is you can set it to your liking. So I'm going to quickly speed up this process to do the same with all the other states. So there we have it. Perfect. We still need to make a few minor tweaks to set the border radius. So again, I'm going to make use of the mask shape that we used, which already has the border radius. So I'm going to paste it over here on the top, select everything below that, right click, mask with shape. So you see the nice rounded corners, and that's what we were looking for. If that's not what you want, you can totally skip this part. So we have the default state or the initial state for the images, and in my actual pin location details, I'm not going to use the default state. I'm actually going to create a copy. So I'm going to press Alt or Option on the keyboard and select and drag to quickly create a copy. So you can actually distinguish between an instance of a component with this top left square. It's not completely filled with green, so you know that's not a main default instance. This is the default instance. And now I'm going to quickly put in the rest of the details, like the name of the place, these icons, and then the other details as well. So I added a text field and then I added these two icons. Again, these are components, but these are the instances of those components with the hover states. And let's say this place has a 4.3 rating. Now this is completely dependent on the data that is generated. Obviously, this is going to be dynamic. But what we need to show now is the stars. So with 4.3, I am basically going to create an instance of the star, set this to fill. It's that easy actually. If you create these icons perfectly in the beginning, you can basically set the rating or change the rating in a snap. I'm going to show 4 stars which are filled and one which is not filled to basically round up the rating. We also want to show how many reviews this place has received. So I'm going to create one more text field, and let's say I'm putting a random number. With all of these selected, I'm going to group them and name it rating. And next we need to add what kind of a place that is. So again, I'm going to select this text field, create a copy, and then move it out of that group. Now I can place it up. It's an Indian restaurant, and again just adding some more details. All right, so that's the details that we want, and I'm going to add the options for takeout, delivery, and dine-in since this is a restaurant as well. So I'm going to use these two icons that we created. These are components, so I'm going to copy them and paste them over here. Reuse this text box. So it says it's open for takeout. Again, I'm going to create one more copy. Let's say this place or this restaurant delivers, and due to the current conditions, it's not available for dine-in. So I'm going to group these and then select all of the the entire thing, and group them and name it options, because this might be different for each location. So let's say this is a restaurant, we have takeout, delivery, and dine-in. But if this is a hotel, then we might want to show the hours of the availability options over here. So I'm going to select all of the items over here by selecting them while I'm pressing shift. So I've selected everything. I'm going to, again, with the background selected as well, I'm going to create a group and name it pin details. So we don't need this anymore. So I'm going to delete that screenshot. Okay, we are really close now. So since this is a restaurant, I'm actually going to use this map pin location. So let me just bring this down over here, arrange it to what I want it to be. So this is what I want it to look like. Let me just arrange it really quickly. This is what I want to look like when the user hovers over that pin, right? With like the images, obviously. So this, the images itself is a component. And now, so with both of these selected, we are going to create a component. I'm going to rename this to restaurant. And since this is the hover state, I'm going to basically create one more state, which is the hover state. And this is what I want it to be in the hover state. So now we are going to change the default state, and now I'm going to hide the pin details. So there's a difference between setting the opacity and hiding certain items, right? So the difference is the bounds of the component or what's going to be visible. So if I have the default state selected, you can see the bounds are actually only for the pin, but in the hover state, the bound or the boundaries actually expand to show the pin details as well. So that's the difference between setting the opacity and hiding. So if you hide something, the bounds are going to change. Whereas if you just set the opacity to 0, the bounds do not change. And that might affect the interaction or the overall interaction that we want to achieve. So now that's really a quick way to, or like a detailed way to learn or make use of nested components, which really means using a component within a larger component, right? So if I expand this component, we have the pin and the pin details. Now the pin details has this as a component as well. It has so many components within the larger component, and that's really the power of using components. Whether you're using XD or any other design program, this really is the advantage across all the platforms. I'm going to quickly add a shadow on this background, and there you have it. This is the default state. This is the hover state. So when the user hovers over the pin, all the details is visible. So what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to, again, we're not using the main component. I'm going to press Alt or Option on the keyboard and really just select and drag the pin to where I want it to show. So let's say this pin's location is over here on the artboard. Perfect. So let's save the progress and play this. It's so amazing. You can, within the hover state of the larger component, you can actually come in over here and interact with the components, the individual components within those, right? And that's the power. So I actually went ahead and created one more pin details, but this time it's for a gas station. Now, obviously I need to change these details. This gas station has, again, like, in the similar way, it has all the different photos. So you can see there's so many photos over here. We have those bookmark and directions icons. So the other details remain the same. We just need to make a larger component now. With the gas station icon, I'm quickly going to place this to where I want, and I'll select both of these icons and create a component. I'll name it gas station. Again, so this is the hover state view. So I'm going to create a hover state and name it and keep the name to hover state. I'm going to come in into the default state and hide the pin details. So now the bounds of the component are set only to the pin. I'll come back into the hover state and make it visible. So again, the bounds are updated. That's the default state, that's the hover state. Perfect. Going to keep them close together. And again, as we did earlier, I'm going to press Alt or Option and click and drag to where I want to use it on the artboard. So really, like, these are components, so you can place them or use them, save them in your design style guide and reuse in the entire design as many times as you please. So let's save the progress and quickly see it in action. And there you have it. If I move my mouse away from the pin location, I get the desired interaction. Now, obviously, if I have more artboards in my design, I can basically link this to give me the directions to that place from whatever location I want. I can save it in my bookmarks. And there you have it, a quick tutorial about nested components, which you can really use for so many things. So if you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel, as I have a lot of stuff planned for you in the near future. Also, let me know down in the comments what you liked about this and what you would like me to change in my future videos as well. I am open for feedback. So we have an Instagram account. Do share your designs and I'd love to see what you create as well. Thank you so much. See you next time.